Hello students, Michael Sanchez, violin teacher here. Hope you guys are having a good evening. So in today's class we're actually going to be teaching you guys something about slow and fast tempos. So sometimes in music there's times when you have to play slow and sometimes there's times when you need to play a little bit faster. Those particular speeds are indicated by words in music, which we're going to go over today. And hopefully by the end of this class you guys will have a nice piece to work on and eventually be understanding of when it's time to either play a piece slow or fast. Okay, so the first piece that I want to look at today is the Beethoven Violin Concerto. And as you guys can see, I actually wrote a word that indicates something about speed of the song. So if you guys can see here, I'm circling the word moderato. Moderato actually refers to a medium speed of how you play the piece. So that's an indicator that eventually, even if you really learn the song, you don't want to go too fast. You want to take it kind of on the slow side. On the other hand, we have a piece that's going to be following this called the Victory Dance, which is actually an Allegro. Allegro indicates that the piece should be played fast eventually. Now what's important with Allegro is that you have to learn a piece slow to start, otherwise it won't sound good right off the bat. So you have to learn something properly, and then eventually you have to aim to eventually work up speed, which is what you see by the indicator Allegro. Okay, so the first piece is in the key of D major, so hopefully you guys are familiar with that key. It has F sharps and C sharps. We're also going to be playing on the G string, which we learned in a previous lesson. And we're going to have some various rhythms. So we have some eighth notes, which are twice as fast as quarter notes. So these two notes combined together are the same as one quarter note. And then we also have some half notes, which are indicated by the white circle. And these are basically 2-beat notes. So that would be the same equivalent of 2 quarter notes. So what I recommend is that you tap your foot throughout any piece, but maybe especially this one because you have some varying rhythms. So one thing that I would suggest is maybe tapping your foot to the equivalent of a second hand on a clock. So a second hand on a clock would probably be going about this speed. 1, 1, 1, 1. That would be considered 60 beats per minute, and that's kind of a standard speed to start a piece. If you're feeling that the piece is a little bit hard at that speed, you might want to take it a little bit slower than that, but I wouldn't go any lower than 40 beats a minute, which would be more like 1, 1, 1, 1, about that. So let's take it at kind of standard 60 beats per minute, which is actually moderato speed. This would be, performance speed. But I think it's a good speed maybe to be able to play this piece, hopefully. So let's take it from the beginning. And for the string crossings, I want to make sure you guys are changing your elbow position. So remember that the right elbow should be below the instrument on the A string, even with the instrument on the D string. And then we should be above the instrument on the G string. Make sure that you're doing that as quick as possible. And the students that are here right now in the class can actually see me. Unfortunately, unless you're in the live class, you won't be able to see the video. Hopefully I'm explaining it clear enough. Make sure that your index finger is over the stick. Make sure that it isn't to the side like this. I find a lot of students that play the violin, they have their fingers like this when holding the bow. This is going to make it really difficult to prevent a bow bounce. So the adjustment would be that we want our index finger to be over the top of the stick instead of being to the side. So basically we're putting our index finger at about the second knuckle instead of the first knuckle. Hope that makes sense. And just in general, we want the fingers to be nice and curved when we play the violin. All right, let's try number 4 at about 60 beats a minute. I'm going to get us started kind of with a click. So it's going to be about 1, 2, tap your foot to this, ready, go. Elbow up. Just like that. And one thing that I noticed in here that I really want to make sure you guys are doing is making sure that you're doing what I call organized eighth notes. So let me explain what organized eighth notes means. So basically when you play the violin, you want to make sure that your eighth notes are basically in either one or the other part of the bow. So here's my bow that I'm illustrating. I'm a really bad drawer. Apologize. Here's your hand. So here's the tip of the bow at the very end. We start about here, and then we're going to split this bow into two parts. So if you're at this point of the bow, which is at the frog, and you're about to do eighth notes, you want to play them in this area. We're going to call that the bottom half of the bow, this area right here. So that's where we're going to play eighth notes if you're at the bottom half of the bow. But now let's say you play a quarter note and it brings you all the way to the tip. So now we're in this area of the bow. Instead of going back to the very beginning to do the eighth notes, we're actually going to want to play them in this part of the bow. Raise your hand if that makes sense. So this is what I call organized eighth notes, and it's important because it really forces you to use the whole bow, to get used to playing at the tip, and it's just good practice for better technique. Technically it's going to sound the same if you play eighth notes all in the middle of the bow, but that's just not quite as good of a habit. So this note here brings us down to the tip. This one brings us back to the frog, to the tip. So at this point, our bow is at the tip, which means that we actually want to play these two eighth notes at the tip of the bow, the upper half, and then this half note will bring us back to the frog. This will bring us back to the tip. So here's how the beginning looks as far as my bow, if you guys want to pay attention. If we keep going, these eighth notes are going to be in the bottom half the way the bow works out. It's like that. So anytime if you're at the tip of the bow, you're going to do the eighth notes at the upper half. If you're at the frog, you're going to do the eighth notes in the bottom half. Hope that makes sense. Make sure that you guys are also doing a fourth finger in this spot. I would see a lot of students play that as an open A, and that's obviously correct, but it's not going to sound as good. So make sure you're using a fourth finger there, which means that you're going to have to work on intonation, making sure that the four is far enough. One quick tip, just for those that maybe haven't seen previous lessons on fourth finger, it's not so much about how you're forcing the four when you're trying to reach it. The fourth finger, by the way, is the pinky. It's more about having the hand as relaxed as possible, having the hand high, and then just letting the fourth finger drop down, just letting it fall. If you do the fourth finger this way, you're actually going to be able to get farther because there's going to be less hand tension. To illustrate this, let me just show you guys something. So go ahead and just take your hand, put it out in front of you. And I want you guys to have it as tense as you possibly can. So kind of like you're grabbing one of those balls that you're trying to like grip as hard as you can, like that sort of tension in the hand. Now, if you try to separate the fingers, it's kind of awkward while that hand is tense to bring the fingers and spread them apart. On the opposite side, though, now let's just relax the hand as much as we can. Do you notice how we have a lot more flexibility? Now we can actually split fingers apart. That's actually the concept that we want to have when we're trying to reach the fourth finger. Because most students, what they do is they're so tense and they think that by tensing up more, it's going to help them, but actually it makes it harder, it makes it more difficult. So what I want you guys to work on this week is actually working on getting the hand higher to where your fingers are making mountains, making your knuckles stick up high like this. And then I just want you to lay the four down and not have any tension in the hand. If you do that properly, you're going to find that you're actually be able to get farther with the pinky. Raise your hand if that makes sense. All right. Most of you guys are getting it. Thanks everybody that's here with us today. We've got about 10 students with us, and hope that people that are watching this class right now are interested in maybe joining us for the next class, which these particular classes have been happening at 8:30 Eastern Time on Monday evenings. Okay, so let's go on to the next song. This one has a little bit more challenging crossovers, and you'll notice that this song is actually going to be quite a few spots for organized eighth notes, as far as they're either going to be at the frog or at the tip. All right, I'm not going to go too fast to start. Victory Dance. right, very good. All right, a couple of things I want to point out to you guys. The last measure of the first line, I would find that to be pretty challenging for students to get clean. So I really want you guys to make sure that while you're doing that measure, that you're really focusing on preciseness of the right elbow, making sure that your elbow moves quickly to get to that next string. And technically, you have to actually change your elbow position 3 times in one measure, like this. Up to G, back down. But what most students would do is they would do that kind of slowly. Sorry, that was my live chat, just to let you guys know. They would do this really slowly, and then it would actually cause students to hit other strings, which obviously we don't want. So we want a nice clean sound, which is achieved by a quick right elbow. Okay, and then the other thing that's kind of new here, maybe to some students, is this little apostrophe sign. That indicates that you should lift your bow to get to the opposite side of the bow, which happens sometimes when we want to start the next phrase with a down bow. But unfortunately, at the end of this phrase here, we're at the up bow. So that little apostrophe indicates a bow lift. That would get us back to the down bow, which is where we want to be. So you'll see that in some music. Sometimes you won't see it, but you'll just see the symbol, the down bow symbol, to follow. That's actually more common, I think, to see in music. And that would be basically what we call an assumed bow lift. So anytime you see the down bow symbol, which looks like this, always assume that you have to be ready to go for this, which might indicate that you have to lift your bow to get to that down bow. This does happen sometimes in music. Also here, this is an up bow. I would call it like a pickup note to the measure. So if I start the second line, you see how we're at the very bottom of the bow at the frog? So what we're going to do here is do a bow lift. This is an assumed bow lift to the very tip to be able to play this up bow. Like that. Raise your hand if that makes sense. How we have sometimes assumed bow lifts in music, but sometimes we do see an indicator of a natural bow lift, which you'll see by the apostrophe symbol. Great. Okay, now what I mentioned earlier as far as this piece is we want to eventually learn it Allegro, which means we want to maybe play it fast, which eventually Allegro is like 100 beats per minute up to like 120 beats a minute, even faster. So let me take it maybe just a tad faster, and you guys can work on this with your metronomes at home. And then eventually the time after that I'll do it even faster yet, which will be kind of a performance speed. All right, let's do number 5 at kind of medium speed for Allegro. Ready? Go. Faster. It's like that. So eventually you guys can kind of work up speed to that, which is, I would say I just did that maybe at 100 beats a minute, which would actually be technically on the slow side of Allegro, but that would be maybe something to work towards at, I would say, your guys' level. All right, I hope that makes sense. At this time, I'll just take any questions if you guys have them. And then we'll, I think, go on to one more song to have you guys work on for this week. All right, I'm going to scroll down a bit here. Down to our next song, which is going to be The Can-Can. So many of you know this song, and it sounds its best when it goes fast because it's everybody kind of knows it as it's going fast, which is indicated by the word Allegro. So, but you have to learn it slow to start. So I think what I'm going to do is just go through it once slow. Feel free, people in the class right now, to accumulate questions as I play it through. either for this song or for the previous songs we've done or for anything else. And then I will play it again at a faster speed and then a performance speed. All right, here we go. Make sure to watch your notes. Feel free to grab your instruments to play along. Ready, go. So yeah, a lot of string crossings in there, so you have to make sure that that right elbow is working nice and properly, changing quickly. Make sure to not change the bow with your wrist at this point. It should be definitely in your arm. But then once you start the stroke, it's all about extending and bending the wrist. The right elbow brings you to that bow plane that you need to be in. What I mean by that is that the bow is in the right angle in accordance to the strings. But then once you're there, it's all about actually using the small muscles, which is extending and bending the wrist. So we don't want to use the elbow and then all of a sudden start using the shoulder and the arm. That's going to cause some problems. Okay, let's go on to, or let's play this at a kind of more faster speed. I would say medium speed here. Ready, go. Like that. Okay, I would say that would be a good speed to work up to for most students, maybe those that are kind of more on the bottom half of the 3 to 12 month experience. But if you've been playing about a year and you're feeling pretty confident, as long as you have the proper technique, I would say you could even try it faster. So let me go ahead and play it faster, and you're going to notice I don't use quite as much bow because of the speed. So that is an exception if the song is going really fast, that you're going to use less bow. Okay, so here's only If You Dare speed, we'll call it. Ready, go. Like that. All right, so hopefully you guys have something now to play along with at home. And for those of you guys that weren't able to attend today's class, I encourage you guys to check it out. It's really easy to join. You just click right onto the website. I'll just maybe guide you guys along with that for just a second here. So it's really simple. You just visit violintutorpro.com. You'll see a navigation link. It's called Webinars. Right below it says See, Schedule, and Enroll. So for those of you guys that are interested in seeing me play and seeing some of the techniques, you're going to scroll down to the 3 to 12 month experience class, which is every Monday night at 8:30. And it's very simple. You just submit your first name, your last name, and your email address, and that will automatically enroll you in the class, and you'll get a notification 1 hour and 1 day before the class starts. So once you do this, it's all self-explanatory from there via the emails that are sent out automatically. So hope to have you guys that are, just checking this out and might be interested. We're building a great community on the site and just giving people resources to learn the violin. And I'm here to help you guys every step of the way. So feel free to ask questions in the forums. Send me an email if you like at michael@superiorviolins.com. And at this time, I'm actually going to hang out with the people that are here right now and just answer any of their specific questions about their practice weeks. So have a great day, guys, and hope to hear from you soon.